Anybody else looking to join the team? Yeah? You're looking to join the team, sir? I'm not quite. You're all right, you're over there. Looking to join the team? So, 2 people. Who needs more in their team? Nearly there. So if you go there and leave the red chair square, so join that team there. So there you go. That's just the suspect. Okay. You're not in. Okay, what do you want over there? Okay, now,
we wouldn't have bought the wine.
The murdered person, I'm going to give you the details in a little while. The murdered person was found dead this morning. It is a real-time murder in terms of days and times, okay? Time of death, cause of death, etc. I'm going to give you all of these details. We make it as real as possible, okay? The person who was murdered was a fellow passenger on your ship, and it's a he, and I'll tell you about the details. Now what will happen is, I will give you as much details as we would have in a real murder inquiry as the Detective Chief Inspector in charge of this murder investigation. As of Saturday, we start to interview the suspects because I have to be finished here at 1:45 because the dancing's on at 2 and I get into massive trouble if I'm not gone. So, this is the session where we set you in your team. When you come back, you've got 2 days off in Boston, as you know. When you come back on Saturday, it'll be in the horizon that we start at 1 o'clock. If you could get here around 10:02 and come where you are now in your teams, okay? Everything stops the same. You are in the same teams. There are 9 suspects to your murder. 9 suspects. You will be given details in terms of their names and the fact that they are definitely passengers on the ship. All of these 9 people, these 9 suspects, knew the deceased. All of these suspects need to be interviewed by all of you teams of detectives. During the next 6 sea days, each of the suspects will come to your teams in turn. You need a spare chair at every table, at every team, because the suspect will come to you. Now, these suspects are real. They're not make-believe. They're not actors and actresses. They are fellow passengers on this ship, and they found themselves in circumstances whereby they are now suspects in the murder. One of these suspects committed the murder. Shall we say, criminal offences or offences that may be, how can I put it, that they're sorry? Well, more than that really, it might well be, because during this murder mystery, I'll be giving you scenes of crime, DNA, fingerprints, a pathology report, time of death, cause of death, etc. And I'll also be talking whether or not there are any intimate samples within the cabin in which the deceased was travelling. He was travelling alone, but the interviews that have taken place so far with the steward would indicate there were not a number, but at least 1, if not 2, ladies, fellow passengers on the ship, who are some of your suspects who have perhaps visited the cabin. Yeah, and some of them are married. Then we'll go back in this. What I'm trying to say is, all of these people have a story to tell. All of these people are themselves. Nothing is make-believe. Where they were born, where they grew up, where they went to school, what they do for a living, whether they're married, whether they're divorced, whether they've got children. Everything is real, ladies and gentlemen. But they know that you're going to interview them. And by the end of this 10-day murder inquiry, you should be able to say in your teams, and it's either got to be a unanimous or majority decision, like a jury. You have to decide who did it, how did they do it, and why. Who, how, and why. You can't just guess. You've got to give me the motive and talk me through what took place when the murder took place. Okay? Now remember, and I repeat, they have not been told what to do. They can either tell you the truth, or if they feel that by telling you the truth, it's going to get them into certain trouble, rather from a private point of view, or more public, and more a fact that they've committed crimes. Okay? They are who they say they are. You will see them around the ship. If you have any questions, if you just put them outside my cabin, no later than say 12 midnight, and then the following morning, and this will go on for the next 10 days after Saturday, I will return the answers to you before you start your interview. Is that okay? Now that's a lot of information. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't mention the murder to them, alright? Especially if you're a suspect, don't mention it. I've been bailed, so I'm alright. Okay, so first of all, before I start giving you the details, there's a lot of information there. Are there any questions about how the murder mystery will run? Yes, you can ask it. Yes, you'll be told. I'll repeat the question when somebody asks. Will you be told? Will you be told how a person died? Yes, I'm going to give you that information now. This is for you to write notes. Now, as well as you. Yes. Yes. Well, you're deciding amongst yourselves what questions you're going to ask the next subject. I can't get. If I have more than 9, I've got as many teams as I've got, so you will wait. They will stop at your table for around 7 minutes. 5, 6, 7 minutes. And then they'll be moving to the next table. So you'll only be not seen as a suspect for around 10 minutes total. And then you get the next suspect. And then you should be looking at. Now, what also do is this. I will, as well as you interviewing the suspects, like a real murder inquiry, if you want me to interview anybody, such as the steward, or let's say they've given an alibi that they were having a drink in Champions, and you want me to, ask the barman, you see, if you go to the steward, who does the cabin where the dead person was found, and said, can you show me where the body was found? There could be trouble, do you know what I mean? Because he'll be going to his supervisor saying, apparently there's been a body in here. So I become the oracle. So if you want to ask a question of anybody, one of your suspects, their partners, husbands or wives, then I become, and I will tell you, ask me the question and I'll give you the answer. Now the way I want you to answer that is every day, if you please, he was very badly injured, and since then he has not flown. He will not fly. He's lost his nerve in flying. Now, everything was going well. He's got an option on some land in the Bahamas. It's all based, actually, if I tell you, it's based on a real story. So I based it on a real murder that took place. And the guy was a property developer. Now, our friend, Paul Andrews, has an option on some land right on the ocean in the Bahamas. And he got all of his money, because he was borrowing up to $200–300 million in order to build this huge resort. And so he's got all of his ducks in a row and all of his money, and then, God bless her, Prime Minister Truss come and decided to, with her friend, they decided to change the whole thing, and people walked away. Okay. You can make some notes. I'll go slowly so you can get the details. If you just want one or two in your teams to make the notes, that's fine. Remember, you'll come back and you'll be in the same teams in the same location on Saturday. Okay, the dead man, the person who was found murdered, was a man by the name of Paul Andrews. Andrews. Paul Andrews. Paul Andrews was 65 years of age. Was, of course, he's dead. It was his 65th birthday yesterday, Tuesday the 12th of September. As they say in police parlance, how do you look? So, he was 65 years of age yesterday. He was travelling alone. Reason for that? We will contact P&O headquarters back in Southampton, make inquiries, but at the moment, he booked a suite. And the suite number is B for Bravo 268. B for Bravo 268. It is got a name which is the Canada Suite. The Canada Suite. This suite or cabin is found if you go on B deck at the back of the ship. At the back of the ship, that's where it would be located. So it's at the back of the ship. It has a small wraparound balcony. It's a very nice cabin. It has a separate living room and television room which you walk into, and then it has out onto the balcony, and then it has a separate room as a bedroom with a double bed in it. And then it has, of course, like everybody else, it has a shower, a bath, and well, not everybody else. I mean, because he's got a window and a balcony, and I can't see anything behind. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so he joined the cruise exactly as you did on the 3rd, and he's been travelling and eating in various restaurants and so on. Now, yesterday being his 65th birthday, when he came on board, he spoke to the manager in charge of beverages and so on, and said that which you're allowed to do if you have a suite. He said he wanted to host a cocktail party. My wife and I, we host many cocktail parties in our inside cabin, but not many people can. But joking, so he wanted to host it. So yes, as long as you pay, you can do that. So he said he was expecting around 12, 14, perhaps 15, 16 people, which could all fit somewhere on the balcony. Bear in mind, this is last night at room time. He sent out invitations, embossed invitations, which were delivered to various cabins. All of your suspects, which I'll give you a list of on Saturday when you come for your first lot of interviews, all of your suspects were invited to and attended his birthday celebration cocktail party between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. last night. Now, not all of them stopped for 2 hours, some stopped for half an hour, some an hour. You need to be asking your suspects what was their whereabouts last night, what was their movements, where did they go, things that you think somebody's going to sit down, eat the murderer I mean, and then you say to him or her, did you do it? They ain't going to tell you. They're just because I build up the psychological stress. When I met with them each individually, I say to them, now, if you've done the murder, it's all very well, oh, it's just a game on the ship, well, it isn't. If this was for real, you're going to be arrested. You may be taken into custody in the USA and then subsequently taken back to the UK because it's been committed on a UK ship registered in the UK. One or the other, you will go to trial. You will be found guilty probably. You will subsequently go to prison for 15 to 20 years. That's the reality of being a murderer. That's the reality. Now, whether they do admit to it or don't admit it, it's entirely up to them. But I have emphasised what the reality is. So, we've got a little bit of background. So we've got time of death, cause of death. Now, what else do we know about him? Well, our friend was we think, we're not sure, we're checking his background and businesses, but we think he was a millionaire property developer, okay? He He had offices in Mayfair in London. He was a divorced man. His former wife, he had 2 children, one in the 40s, one in 52 boys. They have been contacted, as has his previous wife, who had his back to the assailant, and the person, whoever, picked up the bottle by the neck of the bottle, and struck Mr. Andrews on the head, just about on the right-hand side. Our first indications are the assailant was a right-handed person. It could have been male or female, he said. It's the weight of the bottle, the base of the bottle, that caused the damage. It caused a fracture to the skull. Fragments of his skull entered the brain, and he died, so that pathologists would say, more or less instantaneous. So he fell to the floor. Wednesday the 13th. He was found dead in his suite, in his cabin, by his cabin steward. He would, as he's been on board for just over a week, he would take breakfast early, he'd leave the cabin and leave his things, police makeup, at around 8 a.m. But because he hadn't left there, it doesn't exist. Okay? So please don't knock them on and say, is there anything next door? If you want to ask, can you ask the people, example, can you ask the people adjacent, did they hear anything? Good question. I again will be the oracle. Write it down and ask it, you know? So what you're doing, don't forget, when these people come for their first interviews, and remember, they've never ever done this before. So they ain't practiced, you know, they're not in amateur dramatics, they're real people. So how they come, whether they're nervous, don't forget, some have nothing to hide, they're completely innocent and have found themselves in suspicious circumstances that they have nothing to do with. Other person, don't forget, the murderer will come to your team sometime during the next 7 days. You will get to see each of the suspects at your table, in your teams. One of them, as they sat there, is guilty of the murder. What he or she does with that information, I have no control. What I do know is, if, because they've never done it before, if they do come and sit down, and the murderer tells you what he or she has done, and admits the fact that they've done the murder, then what we're going to do for the next 9 days is I tap dance and things like that, because the murder will be solved. But really, on a serious note, I do not, and you, after we finish this, you can ask the suspects. I give them no indication what to do or say. I tell them their story, because every one of them, the common denominator is not the suspects. They don't know one another. They're just other passengers on the ship. The common denominator was the dead man. The common denominator was the dead man. They all knew him in some guise. Friends, work for, business associates, ex-former lovers, whatever it is. This is what, I'll number them as well. You can ask whatever you wish. You can ask if they've got previous convictions. Everything you do in a real murder inquiry. Now, I get on average 300 to 400 questions a night. Yeah, because if you look at it, it's about 23 teams, 10 questions, you know, it easily comes up. But I will answer all the questions. If you ask me something that is not feasible that I could find out, then I will write it, okay? So if you write who did it, I'll put, I don't know. Okay, so, any other, yes? All the suspects, you can give them a caution as well. They have been cautioned by me, but you can remind them. You will say, I'm reminding you, you are under caution, and whatever you say, maybe take it down and write it, maybe give it evidence. That's fine. But they know that they're under caution. Yes. Yes. Now, on the television sometimes, you see where they say, what time did he die, Doc? 10:10. To be that precise, you need to have been hit with a cuckoo clock with the cuckoo at the same time. It is not that easy. It is so. The best we've got at the moment is, he believes he died sometime between 10:30 p.m. and 11:45 p.m. So, to make that simple, he was alive at 10:30, and he was dead by 11:45. It's somewhere within those time periods. So I can't give you an exact time. It could have been 10 to 11, 11 o'clock, 11:30, but it's some time between. He was definitely alive at 10:30, and he was definitely dead at 11:45. He subsequently lay in his cabin until the steward come in, who had his back to the assailant, and the person, whoever, picked up the bottle by the neck of the bottle, empty, and struck Mr. Andrews on the head, just about on the right-hand side. Our first indications are the assailant was a right-handed person. It could have been male or female, he said. It's the weight of the bottle, the base of the bottle, that caused the damage. It caused a fracture to the skull. Fragments of his skull entered the brain, and he died, so that pathologists would say more or less instantaneous. So he fell to the floor. Yes. Well, you're deciding amongst yourselves what questions you're going to ask the next subject. I can't get, if I have more than 9, I've got as many teams as I've got, so you will wait. They will stop at your table for around 7 minutes. 5, 6, 7 minutes. And then they'll be moving to the next table. So you'll only be not seen as a suspect for around 10 minutes total. And then you get the next suspect. And then you should be looking at, now, what also do is this. I will, as well as you interviewing the suspects, like a real murder inquiry, if you want me to interview anybody, such as the steward, or let's say they've given an alibi that they were having a drink in Champions, and you want me to, ask the barman, you see, if you go to the steward, who does the cabin where the dead person was found, and said, can you show me where the body was found? There could be trouble, do you know what I mean? Because he'll be going to his supervisor saying, apparently there's been a body here. So I become the oracle. So if you want to ask a question of anybody, one of your suspects, their partners, husbands or wives, then I become, and I will tell you, ask me the question and I'll give you the answer. Now the way I want you to answer that is every day, if you look me in front, please. Thank you. If you could just line up along here for me, please. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back it up. Murder inquiry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Great. Thank you. Okay. Now, if I can get your attention, ladies and gentlemen, these people, your fellow passengers, these 9 people are the suspects in the murder of Paul Andrews. One of these people committed the murder of Paul Andrews. That person knows. If it is not that person, the other people don't know. They don't know. They'll know that they haven't done it, but they don't know who has. Okay? The whole idea of the murder mystery is you're trying to find out which of these people committed the murder. Some of these people are completely innocent of anything whatsoever. Some of them have dubious backgrounds. Some of them have dubious morals. But that's for you to determine and try and find out. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. So, with no more ado, I'm going to get them just to give me their names. Your name is?
Linda.
Linda?
Aston.
Linda Aston. Is that
Mrs. Yeah.
Mrs. Linda Aston. Is that Mrs. Jenny Binns? Mrs. Jenny Binns.
Mrs. Margaret Westworth.
Mrs. Margaret Westworth. Malcolm Pitch. You cold, Malcolm? Oh, okay. Don't dress up for this, will you? No.
Brian Richards.
Mr. Brian Richards.
Kevin White.
Kevin White. Sue Bottrell.
Lorraine Parkinson.
Lorraine Parkinson, last but not least.
Connor Brown.
Connor Brown. Okay. So, Connor, are you a Newcastle supporter? Yeah, over there. Indicate so they can see. Lorraine, team 7. Over there, Lorraine. Sue, 8, please. 8. And last but not least, Maggie, 9.
tell you the question.
Team 13, please. Right in the corner. Jenny, team 14, please. There's 14. Got it, Jenny? Linda, 15, please. 15. Where's 15? They're right in front of you. Lorraine, 16, please. 16. Sue, 17. 17. It's over there, Sue. Where's Sue? You got it, Sue? 17. Maggie, 18, please. 18's right at the back.
I've left something in the cabin, so after the show I've suddenly realised and went back. And that must have been about past 10, something like that, because I then went up to the senior request. Okay. And he was, when I saw him, he was like, "Home."
What time did you last see him then?
Well, that was a big quarter, about 10:15, 20 past 10.
Okay, and then the syndicate quiz is 10:30.
Yeah.
Okay, did you go from the party then to the syndicate quiz?
No. We went to dinner and then we went to the show.
Okay.
How many what deck are you on?
We're on C day. We're on C day.
C deck.
C day, yeah.
So the person who was suspected murder is Paul.
Well, I hadn't seen him since the news was made. I think he was frozen. Yes. He was in the regular courses in the RAF, and we socialised together.
How would you say your relationship, friendship was before you married him?
Yes, we just socialised generally for this morning.
What time did you leave the car?
So last few questions with the suspect.
I think I'll put this there. I think you're right, when the bottles are put on, we hit more of the bottle and shoot
Okay, Connor. Connor, can you go to team 19? Can you put your hands up at the back there, Connor? Can you see them? 19. Kevin, 20, please, which is down here.
if you could hit the ball.
Last few questions with that, but you don't do it because they were rude at the breakfast table. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
It's got to be quite serious, you know, so that's all I'm getting at. Yes. Yeah. Are you asking about his or theirs? No, ask them. Yeah, you got it. Well, a lot of murders, not all, but a lot of murders revolve around
relationships, both, physical, so yeah, you've got to get into that. Yeah. You've got to start asking the difficult questions. Now, some of them, the majority are married. No, they're not all, but so just because they know what they've done or haven't done, it doesn't mean their partner, husband or wife does. So some may be reticent to tell you, but don't forget, I'm going to give you, tomorrow I'm going to give you DNA. Now I'll also talk about DNA and fingerprints, but I also talk about intimate DNA. So if somebody's had sexual relations in that cabin since the sheets were changed last Thursday, then it'll be on there. I'm not being mucky, I'm saying that's the case. So if it was prior to that, the sheets are gone, they're new sheets.
Younger than me. Are you married? Is your husband with you? Children, grandchildren?
No, I have 2 steps. How many years?
When you got on board and you were invited to a cocktail party, did you know the deceased before you got on board?
No, I met him in 1999. I hadn't seen him since then.